My name is Reed Summers, host of Emergent. This is a conversation I've been looking forward to holding with those members of my community platform called Forerunner, as well as the audience of Emergent, and generally with those who are dissatisfied with the current state of disclosure. They want to advance the discourse, investigate the phenomenon, interrogate its foundations and its fundamental activities in the world, and begin to consider not just craft in the sky, but a true intelligent controller behind that craft. What are they? Why are they here? How are they functioning in the world? How are they engaging humanity? These are the key questions that we need to be asking. In today's conversation, which will be highly interactive, I will be asking you questions, inviting you to respond to some polls as we begin to go through what's happening out there on this topic. What is being said? What information is coming forward from whistleblowers and from others providing eyewitness testimony of the phenomenon in real time? We'll begin with frontline signals. I'll be talking about emergent new trends, information drops that have taken place in recent months. We'll then move on to talk about my own emergent dispatch. What am I up to? What are the projects underway, the initiatives that I'm working on out on the front lines of this phenomenon? And I have a lot to share with you there. Next, I'd like to look at some of your contributions on Forerunner. I'll be highlighting some of your comments and forum posts there. And then next, we'll look at the state of the discourse as a whole. Where do we stand in humanity's collective awareness about this phenomenon and its implications? I'm also going to talk about some of the big ideas that I don't hear discussed often and that I think need to be front runners in the growing discourse on non-human intelligence. And then lastly, I'll talk to you about advancing the front lines. How can you be involved in the variety of initiatives that are underway to bring new data into human hands, to undertake intelligent field research and analysis of what the phenomenon is giving us in terms of signs and signals and clues. So again, thank you for being here. It's been a while. I've been semi-offline working on a number of exciting projects. Tonight, you'll be hearing about those for the first time. And I look forward to where we can go together in this conversation. Frontline signals. What is going on out on the front lines of this phenomenon? Well, first, we had a UAP hearing in Congress featuring 3 whistleblowers and witnesses to the phenomenon: Chief Andrew Wiggins, Jeffrey Nusatelli, and Dylan Borland. I'll throw up on screen here this first post from Jeffrey himself describing the hearings from his perspective and that at the front of the room, as well as his direct eyewitness account of the Vandenberg UAP incursions 22 years ago. Giant red square that he observed in the air. The hearings were followed by another series of drops, mainly by Dylan Borland, an intelligence officer who brought forward some eye-popping testimony on the Weaponized podcast with George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell. And I think we might have a clip from that video that we can throw up on screen here. If you've not watched it, I do highly recommend. It's fast-paced and deep, acronym-rich, as many of these conversations are, but it provides some eye-opening eyewitness accounts that Dylan shared of observing a lighted object and a black triangle, as well as all of the intimidation that he experienced prior to coming forward and in the process of doing so. Can we throw that up, team? Uh-oh. Well, we don't have sound, so we'll let that go. But I do highly recommend watching this episode of Weaponized. So let's step into the hearings themselves. Let's undertake an NHI reading of these very specifically UAP hearings. These were not related necessarily to the intelligence or intent of the phenomenon. They were related to the US government's historic secrecy surrounding this phenomenon, the problem of overclassification, the intimidation of whistleblowers, and still more signals coming out about this longstanding cover-up of the fundamental insights regarding what these craft are, what pilots them, and what their implications are for humanity. So I'd like to step through the hearings with you and just highlight a couple high points that stood out to me. Clearly, in the testimony of both Jeffrey Nusatelli and Dylan Borland, there was intelligence demonstrated by the phenomenon. This is an intelligent phenomenon. This is why, in my view, it's time to be asking, what is the controller of the craft? What is the intelligence behind UAP? Now, of course, some would say, well, we don't know. It's a non-human intelligence. It could be human. It could be covert government activity, foreign adversary, secret platforms in the air and the sea. And I think that that remains a possibility, and in all likelihood does account for some portion of the phenomenon. But there's something of NHI by elimination here. Multiple times the witnesses were asked for their assessment of the phenomenon. No one was quite willing to say exactly what they thought, but they and so many others have made it very clear that this cannot be accounted for by what the US government is doing or by any government, which leaves one to ask, well, what remains, right? Hobbyists, commercial entities, who's behind a phenomenon that can loiter in the air in a craft for weeks, that can undertake 1, 2, 3, 4,000 G-forces of acceleration, that can traverse our skies at a potential speed of over 44,000 miles per hour, that can go from 100,000 feet above the earth to sea level in 2 to 3 seconds. Who could be behind such a phenomenon, if not this government or another government? And though I know no one wants to quite come out and assess it for what it is, it's becoming obvious, not just clear, but obvious, that this is non-human technology operating in our skies, in our oceans, that is having direct encounters with ground observers. Dylan Borland was queried multiple times by multiple Congress people, specifically Congresswoman Mace, asking him, what was it? And of course, Dylan at first did not state definitively what he thought it was, but later in the hearing stated, I already knew it was ET. I believe those were the words, which again, what else can it be if not? And so there's some assessment that this is non-human by elimination. I'd like to run through some other notable quotes from the hearings on non-human intelligence specifically. A question was asked to George Knapp. You reported that James Lakatsky came to you with government possession of NHI craft and how they ultimately gained entry. Can you testify to the veracity of that claim? And Knapp recounted what Dr. Lakatsky told him, that this craft we had managed to get inside of, it had no wings, no rotor, no tail. It had no fuel tanks. They didn't know how it flew or how it was operated. It clearly looked like it was aerodynamic, but not ours. It wasn't ours. We didn't make it. We didn't know who made it and how it was built and how it operated. And we got at least one recovered disk and materials. This is another question from one of the congressmen or women to Dylan Borland. In the classified realm, have you been exposed to undeniable confirmation of NHI technology? And is BAE Systems involved in any way with reverse engineering exploitation of non-human intelligence craft? Quite a specific statement. His response, yeah, we're going to have a conversation, AKA in a secure facility, whether I'm legally even allowed to answer that and whether you're even allowed to hear it, sir. Okay, so when the question verges on being classified, you can imagine what the answer might be. It's probably not, oh no, it's prosaic. It's probably something else. Question was asked to one of the witnesses, is there a security classification guide for UAP or NHI? Answer, not Oh, I'm sorry, there was no direct answer to it. I just took note that it was asked. Let's see here. We have this interesting series of statements and dialogue. Okay, so ARROW, the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, the Pentagon's own investigatory body, stood up by the requirement of the elected branch of government, Congress, to investigate reports of alleged UAP, was discussed extensively at this hearing, and not in very good light. ARROW has, in the words of Representative Luna, been engaged in some form of deception campaign. Its former and first leader, Sean Kirkpatrick, a verified liar, in her words. So not a great footing for ARROW to be the one-stop shop for honest assessments of what the phenomenon is for the public. But interestingly, this was in one of the comments by Representative Perry. The statement that ARROW has made is that scientific evidence of extraterrestrials requires a scientific control. Extraterrestrial is an entity on another planet. The only way to scientifically prove extraterrestrial is we have to go to that planet, acquire technology, bring it back, and compare it to what we have here. By that statement, ARROW found no scientific evidence of extraterrestrial. It's basically a misrepresentation because we do have those things. This actually was Dylan Borland, not a sitting congressperson. What Dylan went on to explain is that there is obfuscation through the choice of words, right? There is a no man's land of language that is being used to obfuscate the phenomenon by saying that we cannot determine that this is extraterrestrial because we'd have to go to another planet to gain a control to compare technologies discovered on Earth to it, means that they can forever, presumably, state that there is no evidence that this is extraterrestrial, a play on words. This is the new semantic battlefield that we're on. And that's why we have to pick our words carefully and really examine what these catch-all terms, even terms like non-human intelligence, which could basically mean anything, UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomenon, that could be basically anything, right? That we do not allow these to be polluted with non-relevant or truly adjacent phenomena, not central to the observed phenomena of the hard structured physical phenomenon observed in our airs and skies and our oceans. And that certain words are not chosen to obfuscate the truth, like the word extraterrestrial in this case. I have on good credit from another individual who shared with me the following. This is a scientist who was told this by a defense official during his time in the government. There's an extraterrestrial threat. It's classified. Deal with it. It's quite a statement, right? And it makes me wonder if on this semantic battlefield, they are guarding certain key positions, and the word extraterrestrial might be one of them. That may be the one thing that they do not want us to know. And we would be remiss if we slid backwards into conclusions of an interdimensional origin, right? Into pure theory, into pure improvability as a way to assess the fundamental nature of the phenomenon. So we have to be careful with our semantics in this respect. A lot of conversation took place in the hearing on the risk of unknown intelligent actors. George Knapp brought forward on the record, to my knowledge for the first time, a full testimony of the files and records that he brought out of the USSR during the perestroika period, the thawing of relations, when there was a warming up between the superpowers, and clear information about the Soviets' program to study UFOs, which was deep, extensively resourced, and long-standing. A lot of very important insights came out of those records. One being the 1982 Ukraine nuclear incident, in which a UFO reportedly put a number of intercontinental ballistic missiles into an irreversible launch sequence, which turned off only when the UFO appeared to voluntarily disappear. There were other accounts of in-air altercations in which at least, I believe, 4 Soviet pilots were killed in ground collisions as a result of engagements with UAP in the skies. So this is key information that has obviously been held back. We do not have a full assessment of the phenomenon, and we have to be careful of the information that is injected into the space that might tilt our perception of them, whatever they are, and of us, and of the actions taken by human governments and non-governmental actors. We could easily become the center of controversy in what is truly an interspecies and highly consequential and controversial event. And I think that that's where the conversation does tend to tilt. Human bad, ET good, and hope for the best, and be open to the grand possibilities of the universe, and create new theories all the time to account for it. This is the eddy that the conversation seems to get perpetually stuck in. Obviously, there was the quote dead drop video of this MQ-9 drone capturing the moment of impact when a Hellfire missile struck a UAP in Yemen quite recently. I think we can put that up on screen here. We have a post by Mark von Rennenkampf, who has been covering this and other US government footage of aerial altercations with potential UAP. And of course, the provenance of this video has come into question. And I think that's fair and valid. But I think there are growing indications that there are altercations taking place in the skies. Weapon systems are being used to down UAP. UAP have also historically, allegedly, downed human craft. There are multiple cases of craft being downed by a potential directed energy weapon from an anomalous source. So this is where we are. This is the game we're in. It's not a benevolent science experiment or a remote observation of no consequence and no impact in terms of human outcomes. It is a high impact, high consequence, and kinetic engagement that we are already in. And I think we need to see it in that way if we're going to understand what to do about it. I also want to highlight in the hearings and elsewhere, there has come forward testimony of what has historically been called close approaches by UAP, UFO to ground observers, and some of the medical effects that this has caused and created. Part of that is an electromagnetic interference, devices not working, phones becoming hot, turning off, dying, a static charge on the body, intense, if close enough, radiation injury from these close approaches with UAP. And the hearings brought forward at least 2 accounts of 2 individuals who came within a close proximity to UAP and had a real set of biological and electromagnetic effects observable. So I think this also bears our attention. When we get close to the phenomenon, what happens? When observers report direct encounters, we should listen to them. Testimony is evidence. It's not the strongest form of evidence and it needs corroboration, but it cannot be denigrated to the position of hearsay, conjecture, or even something like mass delusion. I'd like to ask you now, here's a poll, please vote. And the team here will put it up with the QR code. How would you rank, I'm sorry, what is the question? How would you score the impact and significance of these last UAP hearings in Congress? Take a vote. I'd like to see what you think about how impactful and consequential they were. How would you rate the impact and value of the recent UAP congressional hearings? I'll give you a moment to think about that. And while you're thinking, I think there are indications of more whistleblowers coming forward. There may be more hearings scheduled, although I'm not sure another hearing, another, public theater event on this topic is exactly what will advance the discourse. Some have called it a dog and a pony show, in that the witnesses are handpicked, vetted. They're told what they can say, what they cannot say. I understand that. They're coming from within the defense community. they have a large amount of sensitive and classified information not related to this in their minds, and they have to go through some kind of process to know what they can share and what they can't. So I'll let you respond to this poll. You know, I was pleasantly surprised myself. None of these is going to be a home run hit. But the testimony was compelling. The witnesses were credible. And again, we're beginning to examine the fundamental questions. What is the intelligence behind these anomalous craft? What patterns of activity and behavior are they engaged in? What signs of communication and intentional engagement are observable? We should be paying attention to that as citizen observers of the phenomenon. You know, I've also heard tell that Congress has some other mechanisms they can work to try to get the executive branch of this government in the United States to say more of what it knows. I think I heard out on the Xscape, the Twitter river, as I call it, that there were a series of interrogatives submitted to the executive branch by the Office of Representative Burleson, requiring that more information be proffered from three-letter agencies. And from what I heard, the nature of those interrogatives was edited last minute, dumbed down, blunted. The claim was so that they were more all-encompassing. They were not so exact and specific that they could be declined on that basis of specificity. I'm not so sure about that. And it really recalls me back to the hearing itself, the last set of hearings, when I believe it was Rep. Burleson who talked about the problem of staffers surrounding elected officials and preventing them from gaining access to direct briefings from organizations like Arrow, from speaking to whistleblowers. And it really makes me wonder, who are these people? What is this ring that encircles our elected leaders? Who places these people there? Where do they come from? What is their career path, right? What are their lines of association, their conflicts of interest with other non-governmental organizations and entities? Who are they? Some have even asked, what are they? I think those are beginning to be fair questions. Okay, you give it a collective community score of 3.3. Fair enough. In the middle point zone, I think that's clear. I'd like to ask you now, and this is another poll, an open text, so you should be able to just type in your responses. What do you think would advance society's access to being aware of this phenomenon? What is it? Is it more hearings? Is it more whistleblowers? Is it a president or a federal leader in the world coming forward? Is it more science? Is it more field research? Give us a sec here and we'll put out this poll. What do you think would advance the discourse and bring greater awareness of this issue to the public? So I'll give us 1 minute here to pull that up. And by the way, feel free to drop questions, comments in the YouTube chat. I'll be looking at that throughout the show and I'll be responding to those. What do you think would advance the discourse and the public's awareness of the UAP UFO issue? What would advance the discourse? More whistleblowers, more hearings, more science, more research? Is it talking to experiencers, people who have had direct encounters? Oh, and we want to make this not a multiple choice, but an open poll. I got it. There we go. So you should be seeing that now. I'm going to let you type in your answers and I will come back to that. There we go. Now we got it. And if anyone has any ideas on how to figure out who these staffers are, let me know. Let's begin talking about this donut ring of obfuscating actors that seem to encircle our elected leaders. Representative Burchett, in his comments in the hearing, said, "I see some enemies. I see some enemies too." So we have enemies in the pews, so to speak. Who are these enemies? Who would be opposed to the public knowing that there is a non-human presence in the world, non-human forms of technology, that there's an engagement taking place, that the government knows and has even been involved, possibly even in facilitating it, right? Who's an enemy to that? I can think of some. Well, I think we have to think about, what are their motives and intentions? What are they hiding? And to what end? Maybe we can soften the blow in some respect. Maybe we can raise the temperature in the room and make it a little easier, either through whistleblower protections or through plans for forgiveness. What do you call it? When you forgive the crimes of the past, there's a name for that, a very official one. It's escaping my mind right now. So I think there is a lot of potential there. Okay. As we close up the Frontline Signals part of tonight's show, I just want to point out another interesting statement that was made on LinkedIn by an individual named Jim Shell. We have a screen share we can throw up here for this. Jim claimed that a covert security control system, that's the word he used, is undermining the U.S. Space Force and the U.S. Space Comm Authority, obstructing oversight, misappropriating funds, and interfering with intelligence operations. See if we can put that on screen here. He stated that classified missions have been compromised, whistleblowers punished, and policies distorted to suppress accountability, and some of these activities appear connected to UAPs. He further explained that he was engaged with Inspector General channels since 2022, but leadership has failed to act. Collateral damage is mounting, and the system has spun out of control, prompting him to go public despite serious personal and professional risks. Now, gosh, this makes me think a lot about what Dylan Borland was talking about. Okay, first, on whistleblowers being punished, right? Individuals being career intimidated or career assassinated. Individuals having, and these are his words, the brake lines cut, which is to say the brake lines of their personal automobile cut. Real signs of hostile violence, crimes against those with firsthand knowledge. Next, though, in his Weaponized episode, Dylan Borland talks about direct knowledge of the one key technology that stems from this phenomenon, the most important piece of technology, and that it is not the craft. And here I think of these comments by Jim Shell, that there is a covert security control system undermining, obstructing, damage is mounting, the system has spun out of control. So are we talking about something of an information or AI autonomous worm that has infected systems globally? Are we talking about AI and the rapid race to AGI? What are we talking about? I also think back to a comment that was made about David Grush. And let's see, the name of the individual cannot be forgotten. It's Matthew Pines, of course. He talked to a defense official who reportedly said, AI, quantum, and the Grush stuff are three sides of one triangle, right? AI, quantum, and the Grush stuff, right? The UAP stuff. So what are we looking at here? Have our technological systems been affected, infiltrated? Is there a Trojan form of technology that has been intentionally introduced to steer human civilization in a certain direction? I know this is super speculative for some, but in my mind, it's responsible speculation because there are growing signs that there is a non-human presence in the world. And that presence has an intent because it's intelligent. And intelligence with an intent and a long time presence means that there is an interest. There's a stake potentially in the outcome, the human outcome. Why would there not be an effort to shape outcomes, to steer humanity technologically, geopolitically? It makes total sense to me that that would be the case if there is an intelligent, intentful, non-human presence in the world. And on that topic, I'd like to share a couple things that caught my eye. And we'll put this up on screen, slide 5 here. I took note of this when I saw it on X. And this is just one example of what looks to me like IPB, initial preparation of the battle space. Someone, something, some set of powerful actors are running an operation. They are preparing the information space, the technological space for a confrontation. And I posted this on X, just kind of recapping some of these human anomalous events. The incursions over airports in NATO countries by anomalous, appearingly drone-like craft. The Hegseth Quantico meeting, which was an absolute head scratcher, or not. Not to mention other acts like renaming the Department of Defense the Department of War, all the way down to the most innocuous things like Xi Jinping, president of China, overtly saying and making it highly overtly known to the Trump administration that they will not invade Taiwan while Donald Trump is president. That could be true. Or what better way to lull the other superpower to sleep and make them think that their problems are purely domestic, right? Redeploy your forces domestically. Worry not. There's no problem in the South China Sea. This is a Jedi mind trick. You didn't see anything. You didn't think anything. But at the same time, I think there are signs that China has infiltrated the US in numerous ways. There are sleeper agents. There are systems embedded in hard infrastructure networks around the country. There seems to be an operation at play to prepare the space for something. And my spidey senses, my gut feeling is that we are at the edge of a potential conflict between the US and China. It may be highly asymmetric. It may be, it may not have a traditional beginning or ending. It may not be two armies bucking it in the South China Sea, two navies going at it. It might be more cyber than direct physical kinetic initially. But I think there's an operation at play by at least one side, if not both. And I think we are at the edge of confrontation and a potential physical armed conflict. And I am myself beginning to think in those terms as I look out on the geopolitical landscape, because there are some anomalous activities going on by world leaders. And at times I think to myself, gosh, some of these decisions look non-human. They do not benefit in any realistic sense any one human actor. They are inherently destructive. They unravel the global order. They shred the fabric of global cooperation and the benefits that many receive from a stable global economic system. Who is behind some of these decisions to take down the present state of the international world system? Is there a non-human influence over that? Again, there's a great gulf, a data gulf between asking that question and knowing the answer. But we need to be able to ask the question. If we can't ask questions, if something inhibits that, if there is a credibility corral being created where those who are credible are stuck in the corral, chained to the fence, and they can't even ask the question, they can't even have the thought publicly, that's a problem. Someone is creating a force field around the discourse. So it's my inclination to break through that encirclement and ask these challenging questions that get to the heart of what the NHI human interface really is. How deep does it go? What are its dynamics of influence? Who's influencing who? Is it bidirectional? Is it focused on leadership? Is it focused on one part of the world or multiple? Are there preferred partners being chosen? And are those partners partnering with a non-human presence to carry out any number of ends? And of course, when you look at the technology space, it sure looks like there are some strange events taking place, not only with AI, but with potential claims of breakthrough energy, because of course, to deploy AI or AGI to scale would require phenomenal amounts of energy production. So some are beginning to say that they have made discoveries that would provide the power for such a technological system. Is that a system that is not only being generated organically by human beings, but is being encouraged forward, shifted, or altered? Are we being encouraged to be able to couple with some kind of technological paradigm or regime beyond our own? Questions. So the state of the world is in a very difficult place. The state of many countries as well. Unity is down, division is up. The global order, whatever it was, seems to have ended, and there is now a global disorder of no end. And we have in our air, in our sea, on land, craft of non-human origin with tremendous, powerful technological abilities and abilities potentially to influence ground observers, whether through technology or other means. So it's time to begin asking the question, what is the human NHI interface? Okay, with that, take a sip of tea and look back at the poll. Let's see what you say, what you think will advance the discourse. Okay. The president acknowledging that NHI exists. Well, I wonder if he's already done that. Declassifications of everything that's far past its time, tech, medicine, etc. Unlikely that will be willingly declassified without some precipitating event. Authorities should recognize that they are not able to treat the problem by themselves without the people knowing. They should go public as soon as possible. As it is now, we are losing the war with NHI. Well, I have heard statements by those within government that it has to come out. Otherwise, there will be absolutely phenomenal, deleterious outcomes for humanity. What those are, is that ontological? Is it a health crisis? Is it technological? Is it a physical confrontation in the form of an NHI retaliation? Even that has been put forward. Whistleblower protections, 100%. Public organizations outside of government doing education, which would include members of the public and former current government, military officials. Yeah, I think public organizations have a big part to play, because part of, apparently, why the government hasn't disclosed is the public. What do they do about the public? That's the problem. And governments are not public organizations, right? They are a different apparatus entirely. So for the public to create its own organizations to tackle this and to educate the citizenry, highly critical. A significant, oh wow, there's a lot here. A significant amount of genuinely anomalous material. Public access to one craft. Well, we're not going to get that. But if we can get that, then as many whistleblowers as possible with hands-on experience. It's possible that some anomalous metamaterial makes its appearance on the global stage, not in the form of a mummified body, hopefully. Media transparency. Well, I don't know if the media is the one to expect to be the transparent actor. They might be marching to the drummer of another organization. Consistent media coverage, executive branch and Defense Department confirmations and assessments, major broadcast media reporting seriously about hearings, experiencers, etc. Amnesty, a panel of experiencers with Q&A, like a hearing. Possibly a subset of experiencers who matches certain criteria. Media transparency, more public dissemination of encounters, hearing the stories of lifelong abductees' experiences on these craft. Ceasing of all the disinformation would help significantly. Yeah, can we just please, no more disinformation. A recognition somehow of the reality and scope of the abduction phenomenon, direct encounters from people in the world, physical evidence of ships and bodies, more public awareness and advocacy for truth and disclosure. The Age of Disclosure documentary. Yeah, what happened to that? That was supposed to help. It has yet to come out. And mainstream media coverage. I respect all these comments. I think, yes, I mean, this is what we want and know needs to happen. The question is, what's going to happen? Is disclosure going to be swept under the rug of a highly distracting, overwhelming set of geopolitical events? Possibly. I hold out that that's a strong possibility. Will there be a groundbreaking set of revelations that come through whistleblowers? Possibly. Will the government itself take action because of other exigencies that exist in the exosystem, right? Existential problems that they know exist that we don't know, that are forcing what we've seen already in disclosure. I think that's possible. I think NHI themselves could do it with possible risks of obfuscating their presence or shaping public perception very specifically in the form of a PSYOP, psychological operation. Could a foreign government do it in a hostile sense? Possibly. We will have to take the issue forward as best we can as engaged citizens, which is what this show is all about. So again, thank you for being here. Next, I'd like to give an emergent dispatch. What am I seeing and experiencing in my work on the front lines? What have I been doing? Where have I been? Good question. I have been less public than normal as I've been extraordinarily busy behind the scenes. Well, what I've been doing is helping lay the groundwork for an intelligent and coordinated human response to an NHI presence. An NHI presence is truly a human issue. If there's an NHI intent, there needs to be a commensurate human intent. What is our human intent? Can we voice that? Can we be coherent? We don't know what their reality is, but they probably know what ours is, right? So if we make no collective statement to the universe of a shared sense of identity, right? A non-fungible human identity cannot be undermined or claimed to be a subset or a sub-identity to another entity, for example. Can we be a coherent human in the universe? Can we articulate an intent in our human domain? Is that freedom? Is that unity? Is that sovereignty? What is our human intent within our rightful human domain? As I think about these big questions, I come back to three words. What can we all agree on as human beings? Stability, security, and sovereignty, the three S's. I think those are the basis for a collective statement of human intent. And so I've been working in the last year on formulating a series of documents, initiatives, building a network and a platform for participation and partnering to bring about a collective, coordinated management of this non-human presence in the world. I think that's very important. We have to step outside of our social, cultural, tribal interests to identify a human interest. And I think that's one part of where this phenomenon really suffers, at least for our intents and purposes. To the extent that this is a national security concern and not a world security concern, to the extent that it is within a national interest framework and not a human interest framework, we will misidentify the phenomenon and miscalculate our response to it. And we will factionalize, we will divide, and provide an infinite number of exploitable vulnerabilities to any intentful actor, human or non-human, if they wish to subvert and shape the human outcome for whatever end, even if they think it's a beneficial outcome. So articulating the human interest is very important. To meet this need, I've spent the better part of a year and a half helping to direct strategy for a new nonpartisan, nonprofit organization called the Human Institute. The Human Institute is working to articulate, frame, conceptualize what the human interest is in potential contact with non-human intelligence. It's working to gather data and to formulate data sets that do not yet exist, to conduct targeted research upon those data sets and to publish that in an impactful way. It's also working on forming new partnerships within the community of UAP organizations that are already working and doing great work on this issue, but also organizations that are adjacent to this phenomenon, but not yet focused upon it. There are organizations that deal with human rights. There are organizations that deal with technology controls. There are organizations that deal with human trafficking. Maybe they should be thinking about the implications of this engagement that might be taking place. There are capacities, human capacities, that we are not leveraging in the direction of this issue and its monumental implications for the world. We should begin doing that. The Human Institute is also working on convening that community of partners, helping to steer the intelligent research and inquiry that needs to be done, and target the limited number of efforts and condense them into a more concentrated, penetrating line of effort on behalf of the public interest. And then last, designing solutions. I myself am a pretty darn good solutions designer, I have found. I'm sure you've got talents that you've yet to tap into or fully discover. Well, humanity needs them, right? And there are good initiatives underway. And I'll be sharing more about those as we go forward, ways that you can be involved in bringing your talents on board to help advance the human interest. As part of my work with the Human Institute, I have been helping to develop, I'm actually one of the chief creators of a new platform that is doing high impact evidence scoring, narrative presentation, and a coalescing of key information regarding this phenomenon. It's called ufoevidence.com. Head on over there, put your email in. You're going to want to get updates on that. It's pretty gosh darn groundbreaking, in my opinion. I'm very excited about UFOE, as we call it, ufoevidence.com. Another initiative I'm working on is I will be co-chairing a panel and presentation series called Investigating Non-Human Intelligence. More about this soon. I'll be sharing links. But suffice it to say, it's an exciting new platform for scientists, researchers, field investigators, and experiencers to come forward, give a presentation on their methods, on their findings, and on the research roadmap that we need to be devising and designing to uncover the fundamental questions about the phenomenon. Again, limited time, money, expertise, human resources, human capital, right? How do we intelligently direct that to uncover the key questions? Because we can't uncover it all at the beginning. So investigating non-human intelligence, the first talk will be, I believe, November 12th. Might be November 7th. Somebody will fact check me on that. But it's going to feature the brightest minds, key experts, some of our best voices in the field, articulating how we should be investigating the fundamental reality of a non-human intelligence. So very exciting. And there's so much more. I've been working on hosting an X space called Disclosing Non-Human Intelligence, a safe space for individuals to come forward with direct firsthand experiences. I hosted my first one about 3 weeks ago. We can put that on screen, I think. We have a slide for that. Yeah, we do. So we had William English, Green Beret, firsthand witness to the B-52 human encounter with potential non-human intelligence that took place in Laos during the Vietnam War. One of the most shocking UFO cases in history, without a doubt, hands down. I've been in touch with him on the side for many months. I look forward to bringing him on Emergent to share his account of what took place in the jungles of Laos. Also, Jason Sands came on the Disclosing NHI X Space, shared some eye-opening assertions about the potential relationship between the US government and the extraterrestrial entities behind the phenomenon. So I hope to do more of these Disclosing NHI X Spaces And I'm hoping more people step out of the woodwork. It's a very safe place to talk about your experience and the potential signals and signs of intelligence and intent that your experience indicates. I'm also going to be on a number of shows, podcasts, and events upcoming. I'll be this Sunday speaking at the Global Disclosure Day hosted by New Paradigm Institute. Could put that up on screen as well. And I'm honored, honestly, to join and be on stage with an A-list of speakers, policy experts, institutional leads, focusing on the disclosure of not just UAP, but the intelligence behind UAP. I'll be co-chairing a conference in February on detecting and tracking UAP. I think this is going to be an exciting event, and it's my privilege again to have a co-host position in this, and to bring out into the public new ways that society can begin to claim agency and authority in this interface with anomalous objects and craft, and provide its own tools and techniques for detecting and tracking UAP in the skies. We cannot wait on the Pentagon to tell us what they know and to give us the capabilities they have. Society needs to develop its own. And I believe those tools already exist. We just need to bring them together into one platform that gives a voice to all these different actors and begins to set forth a shared path into the future of what detecting anomalous craft will require. I also want to play a short segment, if we have it, of an episode of Emergent I did with Ronnie Vernet. Ronnie is a researcher in Brazil, very smart guy doing excellent field research with both detection technologies, but also merging that with an assessment of eyewitness testimonies and potentially other means of both detecting and potentially communicating with the intelligence of UAP. I think we have a short segment. I'll see if the team has this ready, where Ronnie talks about a series of a series of encounters that took place starting in, I believe, 2016, in which UAP craft appeared to be targeting civilians on the ground, specifically young women. Let's see if we have this to throw up. I thought this was fascinating because for those who are students of the phenomenon, you would know about the Colares event that took place in Brazil, coastal Brazil, Operation Prato, Operation Saucer, the Brazilian government's official military response to this event that took place in Colares. And the shocking accounts of individuals being targeted and having laser-like injuries and incisions as a result of these encounters with bright lights that appeared over their villages and over the city of Colares for over a year. And then in the end, the military ended up being targeted by the same phenomenon, had their own pretty shocking outcomes. Of course, the whole thing highly documented, totally put under wraps. I'm told there are organizations in the United States that have a tremendous amount of data about Colares that they have not brought forward yet. And I was able to ask Ronnie about Colares, but also the question, is there anything like that that he knows has taken place since? I don't think we have it ready. So, but if you head over to that episode, I believe we have it bookmarked. You can find that reference. Maybe we can link to it as we go forward. All right, folks, how we doing? 6:15 p.m. I'd like to ask you a question. You're all followers of the show, followers of Emergent, hopefully users of Forerunner. Maybe you're students of my course on decoding alien intent. I'd like to ask you, what do you think I should do next? Who should I be talking to? Is there a podcast or a show where I should make an appearance and have this conversation, the UFO conversation, as I have? Where do you think I should be going with what I've been offering so far in my platforms? Let's put that out as a poll on Slido, open text. Folks can just say what they think. And we will get that on screen. Question is, what do you think I, Reed Summers, should be doing? Be my best advisor. How can I do better and have greater impact in helping people to think through the phenomenon and to approach it with logic, caution, human responsibility? There we go. We'll hit the play button on that. And let's put that Slido up on screen. Okay. Constructive critique welcome as well. If you think I'm doing a real shit job of it all, you're free to tell me. I won't be hurt. Trust me. I have pretty thick skin after this last run of many efforts. How could Emergent be more effective? Are there guests I should have on the show? Anything you'd like me to do next, let me know. You were already doing so much. Too much, some might say. Maybe I should do less. Chase the aliens off our planet. Well, my good friends, ladies and gentlemen, that is outside my capability set. However, I think there are certain actors, institutions with that capability set. I don't know. Maybe that's what they're doing in apparently, allegedly taking these craft out of the sky, putting them on the ground. Although I doubt it's out of pure duty to humankind. I think there are definitely ulterior motives at play. But in all honesty, before we just disparage our own human authorities and military organizations, they are set up to defend. And they have. Human military organizations have defended their populations for millennia, right? We are good at this, especially when there is an opponent, an adversary present. Is that partly this response of using these alleged directed energy weapons, high pulse microwave beam weaponry to down UAP craft? There is some testimony to suggest that a lack of technological parity with the phenomenon has been a major crisis for certain militaries historically. Oh boy, here comes the feedback. All right, let me get this. Let me crunch my knuckles and get ready for you to tell me what I should be doing. All right. The Night Shift podcast could really use your grounding presence these days. My grounding presence is always available, folks. I'm always ready to give anyone a hug and, ground them. I know we like to get lofty and heady and highly theoretical, and we design our novel theories, and we do the possibility parade around the block. We parade our possibilities in this 4th of July celebration of potential, human potential, universal potential, when really there is a consequential physical phenomenon engaging us on the ground. So less theory, more action, right? So I'm always ready to give my grounding presence. But thank you for calling that out. I appreciate it. Okay. More international guest speakers. Very open to that. This is definitely an international issue. If you would like to send me those speakers, you're more than welcome to. Message me on Forerunner. Send me an email at info@reedsummers.com, and I will definitely consider that. All the better if you can help make the introduction. Keep doing your thing, Reed. Honesty, objectivity, relentlessness, ferociousness. Need more of that out there. I agree. I really like the panel you did with James Landoli and others on the show Engaging the Phenomenon with Ryan Robbins and, Pavel. I think Pavel was on that show, and James. Yep. I'd love to see you go to established organizations to show how they are working. Well, to show what again? What would I show those established organizations? I know the Human Institute is doing some revolutionary work, and I look forward to seeing how it begins to partner with other established organizations. And I'm very open to being a part of that. It would be nice if such broadcasting and collaboration with various collaborators continued. I agree. I think there are too many silos in this space. Um, Too often we cannibalize a limited set of resources and attention spans by a limited audience, right? And so the question to me, it's all about the cause. The cause is not even figuring out them. It's figuring out us and what we need to do down here to be ready for them, whatever they are, whether they're physical, non-physical, beneficial, hostile, right? A mixture of all. In the end, we have a human project at hand. We have got to get our human act together to coherently engage whatever exists systemically beyond the human domain and the domain of the Earth, our Earth planetary system. I call it the exosystem, right? It is exo, it is not us. And it is more than just non-human intelligence, right? Non-human intelligence is just the intelligent aspect of a non-human reality, a non-human ecosystem of actors. It's non-human economics. It's non-human cultures. It's non-human linguistics. It's non-human psychological engagement and effect. So it is a non-human reality. And we have to get our human act together at all levels, the level of government, intergovernmental, non-governmental, in the private sector, in the public sector, and all of it, to be able to wisely and safely engage whatever is out there, because we cannot assume that it has our intent in mind. It has its own intent in mind. Whether that's beneficial or hostile, we would have to have disclosure of that intent. We would also have to articulate our own. So we have work to do. And I look forward to committing, I view, a large part of my life's effort to that cause. I would not disperse too much in too many initiatives. I mean that I'm afraid it would weaken all of them. Shouldn't we converge to build up momentum? How can we unite if there are too many places to participate? I agree. And yet there has to be a willingness to participate and to collaborate. Everyone wants to be the hero of this phenomenon, the hero of disclosure, right? Everyone wants to have their own thing. And with that thing comes money and prestige and fame and all of it. You know, there's a great quote believed by Harry Truman, US president, something to the effect of, it's amazing what you can get done when no one cares who takes the credit, right? But just getting done what needs to get done. What is that solution? The gaps are obvious. There's enormous gaps in the data available, in our ability to collect the data technologically, or even at the testimonial level. And then without that data, how do we intelligently come to understand the phenomenon using science and research methodologies? You don't have a data set, right? All the while, our data set, the human data set, has already left the human system, right? We have broadcasted into space. We have rendered ourselves open to be engaged without any safeguards or controls. So there is a tremendous disparity in the engagement here. And anyone who knows anything about the phenomenon knows that, and that it's a problem. So to right that disparity, it's about us getting out there, collecting the data, us wrangling the beast, not letting this wild and elusive phenomenon evade our detection and our understanding, which it seems to want to do. So that's on us. And so if there is a spirit of partnership and collaboration that can take hold, and a sense that this is for the human cause, it's not the national cause, the cultural cause, the me cause, it's the human cause. I think we can get tremendous work done. Interview Trump. Well, that will not be happening, but I'm open to that guest. Yes. Okay. The interview with Danny Sheehan was great. Agreed. I liked where Danny took the conversation. I thought he took it into some new territory. Keep hammering away at the message. Let it be something living that you take with you by continuing to bring stories to light, new and historic, even legendary or unknown, and pointing to the critical questions the various aspects of this phenomena bring up from a long view perspective. I love it. I love a lot that I see in that, especially the long view perspective. You're doing great. I especially enjoyed the panel you did. You're helping us to think clearly and stay grounded. Good. More coverage collaboration with the 51st state of Canada. Ah, you have relented to the demands of my administration. Welcome to the United States. You are but the 51st. Get in line. No. I love Canada, and I look forward to collaborating with my northern brothers and sisters 100%. I don't know of that many organizations, interestingly, on this that focus on this topic up there, but we should collaborate. I think we need to start putting a focus on the conversation about NHI deceptive influence on government entities. You know, I think there is a project at hand to look at the spread of memes regarding NHI entities. There are these memes about blue beings, tall whites, Arcturians, Pleiadians, entities from a specific star system. Could there be an effort to understand and analyze those narratives? What is their narrative structure? Where do these narratives originate? Who perpetuates them, right? Does there seem to be a pattern to how they are potentially seeded and spread? I think that has to be done because here's a fun little project for you. Here's something for you to do. Go over to ChatGPT, your artificially intelligent brother, hopefully your human-made brother or sister, and go ask it some questions. If there was an entity in our space with an intent that did not match our own and that was operating some kind of program in engaging humanity, how would they begin to influence us? What would they do? ChatGPT has some interesting first-line thoughts and insights on what a non-human intelligent entity would do to affect our human outcome, especially not wanting us to know what they're doing. So in operating covertly without disclosure of their intent or overall the outcomes that they have in mind. Go see what it says. One thing it says, I'll just give you the spoiler, I'll just spoil it right now, is there would be an effort to influence the information space. There would be an intent to spread narratives that foster a certain perception of non-humans, but also of humans, that would create an uneven playing field so that whenever the negotiation happens, whether it's diplomatic or much more subtle and long-term, the negotiation of intents, the human thought space, our human thinking, which predisposes our communication and thus our action, has already been effectively preconditioned for the outcome that a non-human would want, right? So what you're saying here is an effort to understand if there are acts of disinformation at play. I think that is a valuable effort. Somebody should do that. I've already shared this with you privately. Incorporating psychology of transformative events to give power to experiencer testimony. Develop a model that people can use as a tool to understand what an experiencer experiences. I love that. To develop a model that people can use as a tool to understand what an experiencer experiences. To help normalize what... Sorry, I lost my screen there. Oh, jumping around on me. What yet may read or hear from experiences will help people rushing into, okay, I think that got a little garbled there, but I think I get the gist. Yes, is there a framework by which citizens and care providers, whether it's at a mental health level, physical health level, law enforcement, public safety officials, a model or framework by which we can understand what is subjectively reported in an experience, and there are multiple kinds of experiences reported, and give people a model or tool to examine that for themselves and to maintain commonly held human values of agency, safety, sovereignty, personal sovereignty, free thought, for example. Yes, I think that's super important. I really like to talk with Matthew Shadagas and Mitch Randall. I feel the scientific analysis and approach here were very convincing and grounded. Agreed, and there are great minds already in the game. And I've thoroughly enjoyed meeting these gentlemen and others since, and putting together shared initiatives which I think meet the need. They fill the gap. And they don't do so with my talents and abilities, which are limited. They do so with those of people whose IQs are off the chart, and whose career and professional experiences are already fully established and able to execute on so many different levels. Um, I look forward to being and providing possibly some kind of connective tissue between those powerhouses of the UFO community. And then last, we need Disclosure Day, a way to give whistleblowers an opportunity to come forward at a specific time and place. We pick the date and location, perhaps DC, then promote the date among the UFO diaspora. Whistleblowers will then be able to silently and independently choose to participate months in advance without having to make any prior arrangements. I understand the sentiment and spirit of that idea. And yes, I want those who know to step forward and say what they know. I also respect the problems that they're facing, and that there are other bases to cover, right? You don't want to compromise your family, necessarily your company, necessarily the authority of your government. And I get that. I hope that there are workarounds. But I know that there are people deep within the US government, the military establishment, the private sector, as well as internationally, who's talking about China and Russia? Not in a bad sense, but in a positive sense. What do they know? Could there be a convergence of intelligence scenarios and assessments? Could there be a coordinated human preparedness and response undertaken? There's so many divisions and oppositional lines already drawn up. It's almost impossible to imagine what I have been calling for some time now, a unified human response. Aim high, right? What else is there to aim at? So we have to break down these barriers internationally. There could be whistleblowers from other governments, not under the same non-disclosure agreements and secrecy clauses that US personnel are under. Something's got to happen to subvert the current regime and undermine the secrecy apparatus, which again, I don't view it as necessarily entirely human. I think this much time, this much technology transfer, there is a possible non-human human collaboration going on. There may be NHI infrastructure woven into the national infrastructure of one or more governments, right? And so the secrecy apparatus is considerable. It's highly intelligent. It's adaptive, right? It is resisting conventional forms of disclosure. So we need non-conventional forms of disclosure. Are there ways society itself can drive forward and trigger certain events to take place? I was told just today by someone I met out on the street. I had another UFO conversation today, actually several, with a fellow. And he told me he's following someone, an AI professional, who says under certain conditions, certain large language models will render accurate information about the NHI presence. When I say accurate, that may not have been the word he used, but they will basically break down the nature of the presence itself. Now, how is it accurate is a question, of course, but how does this AI engine know that? Is it possible that citizens could inject enough accurate testimony into the informational space that AI picks that up and begins to synergize that with other forms of information that may be coming from government into public access through, for example, Freedom of Information Act, right? Could there be an AI tipping point where the machine itself tells us what is happening because, we seem to not be able to figure it out ourselves? I think that's possible. Great input, everyone. Thanks for the spirit. Thanks for being with me in this. I love knowing that I'm not alone, and I know I'm not. Next, I want to, in our last few minutes, turn over to Forerunner, and I'd like to just look at some of your contributions on the site. Several months ago, I started a forum called Emergent Discussions, and it was my hope to create new discussions every few weeks, engage with you there, and then recap those live. And I am, in fact, doing that for the first time now, but months late. I apologize. I got extremely busy. So I'll just walk through two of our conversations and highlight some of your contributions. So one of my questions was, how should we interpret UAP incursions over nuclear sites? Their significance and meaning. Is the behavior indicative of surveillance, interference, or deterrence? Do these incursions suggest concern, curiosity, a message of peace, or something else? How should we interpret disabling of nuclear weapons systems, and conversely, incidents where UAP have seemingly put weapons systems into live fire activation? That last scenario has taken place multiple times. It took place in 1982 in Ukraine. It took place at the Minot nuclear facility, and I believe several others in the last 20-year period. Hillary, thank you for your comment. Still difficult to say. I would think from what we know so far that there is a dual interest in nuclear facilities of making sure we don't blow up the planet, but at the same time watching how do we use it, and if we advance it, using it for the good. Where they may have triggered live nuclear launch, could it be to scare us, to show their power over us, and could they have actually stopped it? Which is a good question. Can they actually truly stop a nuclear war? Is there a cat and mouse scenario taking place to show their power and to enfeeble us into submission? Or is it a study of behavior? I don't see a benevolent strategy other than to conserve the world's resources by controlling us to not destroy them. Then again, are they here to teach us how to look after nuclear energy for the benefit of both sides? You know, some have surmised that the nuclear age is a phase of life that all civilizations may enter into at some detectable moment in time. It's a predictable stage of evolution to split the atom and uncover this phenomenal source of energy. Our nuclear detonations of over 2,000 nuclear weapons have been detonated since the 1940s, seem to have been a big factor in what has piqued the curiosity of this phenomenon. There seems to definitely be a nuclear interest, but also might have initiated its engagement. What have we flashed the universe with, right? So it might be a number of things. It might be them coming to figure out, where do we stand technologically? Them coming to understand what threat do we pose to each other and to the planet? Maybe the planet is much more valuable than us, right? Which is, I think, a very plausible scenario. It's a very rich, biologically diverse planet. Could that be of interest to non-human entities looking for either space for habitation in an interspecies sense, looking for biology as a resource in a kind of exoeconomic sense? Who knows? Maybe even interest in the planet for its strategic position. We don't understand the fine network of interactions and dynamics of movement beyond our world. But there is an interest in the planet, it appears. And so nuclear weapons, what more than that could threaten the planet itself? Thanks, Hillary, for your comments. Comment by Jamie. I'm gonna jump to the bottom. I suspect that the issue may possibly be more than just nuclear weapons or power plants. It may be that all high energy sources either attract attention or enable something to come here. I quietly wonder if facilities such as CERN may also come under some sort of scrutiny. I mean, if you take the comments by, oh my goodness, he was on Jesse Michaels' American Alchemy, the late Harold Malmgren, there it is. According to what he was told by certain defense officials, is that whatever this intelligence is, it takes an interest in our tip of the spear technologies. I believe that was the exact phrase. Would they take an interest in quantum energy? Possibly. Would they take an interest in our computing, our supercomputing? Very possibly. Our information systems, our control systems, our surveillance systems, right? These are all functional tools, homegrown, we think, that could help, again, shape the human outcome for a non-human intent. So I would presume that they would take an interest at the least, if not to quietly influence, possibly at the worst. But yes, many have surmised that a high energy output is a kind of signal of its own, that there are certain frequencies that can be emitted that UAP respond to. How interesting is that? So, is energy generation or emission a communication event, a human communication? Possibly. What is their fixation on these high technology, high energy output, hard infrastructural sites? It's a question. And I think there are multiple scenarios that might explain it. All right, next conversation. Let's jump over there. Reading the signs of intent. Which hypothesis best fits the data? So this was back episode 19. We were talking about the SCU intention study, and there were 8 scenarios of intent listed here. I asked you to rank these 6. I'm not sure how many folks had the chutzpah to do a pure ranking. Just for fun, why don't we copy paste these, and I'll do it myself, into a poll. And heck, why don't we rank them right now? Let's see. You know what? Oh, that did work. Now, before I post this, how are we ranking? Like, what are we using to rank these? Okay. I think it's important to go by the observational record. Now, we're all different students of that record, some deeper, some less so. I also think there's an intuitive, instinctual sense that's worth relying upon here as well. Instinctually, what's your sense based on what you have seen? And intuitively, right? Is there a spontaneous sense, a clear sense of objectivity that comes to you as you see these? Maybe some think that that's too woo. I don't. So let's put this out. Put this up on screen. And let's see, did I get them all? I think I did. Okay, there are 7 scenarios. And this is right out of the SCU intention studies. The link to the intention study is on the Forerunner page. I read the whole thing myself. I covered it thoroughly and in depth. And while you're thinking about that, and maybe we can share the link in the YouTube comments or chat, I'm just going to go back to Forerunner here and look at what folks shared. Again, from Hillary, thank you for your comments on all and for taking a stab. So yeah, I mean, all remain possible. Nothing's off the table. And multiple scenarios are also highly probable, right? It's probable we're not dealing with a single intent. Although I think there might be something of an intent convergence, like biological convergence, right? Certain traits tend to appear among different species in different places because the forces at play prefer those traits to arise. For example, 2 eyes, 2 ears, fingers, certain body organs, etc. So is there a convergence of intent in that multiple actors are going to tend to influence each other and down select to one or a few dominant intentions? If those compete, does one outcompete the other? And now there's even fewer dominant intentions, such that it could come down to potentially 1 or 2 intents. I think that's more likely than a rainbow of all intents at all times throughout history forever, as many like to say. Oh, it's probably everything. I would actually say it's probably not everything. In fact, it's almost certainly not everything. A truly hostile actor with the technology and the means to suppress not only human responses, but non-human ones, they're not going to allow a benevolent group of space angels or spiritual guides to come and, kumbaya with humanity. They're going to chase them off the planet, right? So I don't think all intents coexist perfectly at all times. From Alessandro, to be completely open to every possibility, I think that we have to consider that maybe they are so alien to us that we are not able to correctly interpret their behavior and their intent. A situation even more complicated by the fact that there may be more than one alien force at play. Thank you. Yes, just what I said. Yet reducing to what we can rationally surmise, honestly, I cannot see any other possibility than the last one: unilateral exploitation. Everything they are doing, the way they are doing it, speaks of intentions that are not beneficial to us, even when that seems to project emotions of wellness and love. I do not see plausible that they have been misled by our representatives, the ones that are in touch with them. Oh, I see, by human governments, for example, and their way of thinking. So I would discard any other more benevolent scenario. I also have to tell you that I've considered the hypothesis that even the allies, which we can get into at some point, are not telling us the truth, but I'm not really able to see good reasons to not believe their warnings. So just to talk a little bit about this, a number of individuals who I know are sitting on an extensive knowledge base as to what the phenomenon is and has been. I'm thinking of whistleblowers who have come forward, have shared that there are no indications that this is benevolent or beneficial. That doesn't mean it's hostile. It just means it's not that. It's not benevolent or beneficial. In the absence of beneficial, of activity with a overtly demonstrative beneficial intent, I think humanity should take a necessarily defensive posture. Until we know, we should be highly cautious. That people appear and actually say they are verbally or intuitively or at a psi level being encouraged to make contact by NHI without any regard or respect to their personal process of vetting the communication and the entity, of being cautious and remaining strong in their own sense of personal authority, that's a major flag to me, that any entity would come here and say, open up, open wide, because here we come. You need us. And to chase that cocktail down with a little bit more human denigration. You're a virus on the earth. You're under a prison planet containment. You're not trusted in the universe. You don't even deserve the planet. We created you, by the way. It's like, how much demeaning can you do to an experiencer in the same breath that you say, open up, open wide, because we're here for you? So there are absolutely, in my knowledge of the experiencer testimony, which is wide and has a lot of variety, there are early signs of syndromatic responses that are being triggered intentfully or intentionally by whatever is communicating with the individual. I'm thinking of Stockholm syndrome now, an attachment to whatever this entity is that seems to capture and to circumvent logic and personal instinctual responses. There definitely seems to be an intentful triggering of those typical human syndromes in engaging another entity. Not to mention somewhat subversive activities in the NHI-initiated non-consensual physical encounters, the abductions that people report and allege to be having. If you look at those accounts over time and over their geographical distribution in the to some extent, the pre-internet era, I'll say that, definitely the pre-social era, the commonalities in those accounts, in those narratives, is phenomenal. What they report seeing, the entities, the activities, the procedures. I think we are at the behest of that bulk testimonial record. We owe it to each other to pay attention to it. Let's see here. Okay, I'm going to go back over and see what you all think. Okay, so back to Slido here. Okay, these do rank effectively. Unilateral exploitation, number 1, recognition of intelligence, contact attempts, survey, biological studies, communication, collaboration, and unilateral assistance. I found it interesting in the intention study that the sample set was not large enough and did not have the key indicators sufficient to conclude unilateral exploitation. So in a sense, there wasn't enough data on the bad stuff, the key indicators that could ever yield an assessment of unilateral exploitation. It was as if that was, in a sense, barred from the final assessment based upon the deficiencies of the data available. And I do not in any way say the authors intentionally did that. Not the case. I think they did their best to condense down to the most credible data set possible, but the key indicators that would point to unilateral exploitation were absent overwhelmingly. And so this is where I ask myself, in this engagement, this operation that's being run on our planet by whatever the intelligence is it leave no trace? Are these benevolent scientists just watching the human wildlife do their thing? Don't Don't affect them too much. Don't intervene. Or is it leave no evidence, leave no tracks, right? Which is an intent to obfuscate one's activity while one makes a direct attempt at influence or intervention and to affect, the human wildlife. It increasingly looks more like the latter to me. And we should never neglect in the disclosure equation the non-human factor. And I think that is one mistake that many, if not most, do make. There is no non-human factor. It is a purely human equation. And this is why the factors don't make sense. They don't add up. Why would we obfuscate? I hear so many people say, why would government keep this from people? Like, why would fundamental understanding about life, the origins of the universe, be kept back? It's like, have you thought of the non-human factor and how it has interfaced with the human factor and has created disturbances that are well worth keeping under wraps, right? You have to take that into account. You have to understand the game that we're in at this point. We're shooting them down. In some cases, they're shooting ours down. They're engaging people on the ground in alarming ways that contravene all commonly held human values around bodily safety and psychological wellness. They're contravening national, state, local laws. They're contravening treaty-based agreements between governments, right? This is a contravention, a contravening at the minimum. It's not to say it's evil. Maybe they think they're doing us tremendous good in contravening all that, right? That's okay to consider that as a possibility for sure. But the nature of the engagement is such. And that's where I believe that the level of the discourse needs to go. So that takes a level of courage and bravery. And that takes being a forerunner at this point, because that's not where the conversation is at. And that is why I launched Forerunner and Emergent. And thank you for being a part of that. I'd like to, let's see, where are we at time-wise? We're running down. We're running to the finish line here. I want to just head over to YouTube and see if you have any questions for me. Again, feel free to, you could just post those in the YouTube chat. I guess we could put that up in Slido as well. Why don't we launch the Q&A and put that up on screen? Yep. And I'll get over there myself. What questions do you have at this point? For yourself, for the collective effort? And we'll put the Q&A feed on your screens, and I'll start scanning YouTube. Let's see here. Am I smart enough to get to my own live stream? Always a question. Are we in a new live stream? Are we at a new link? It might be. Okay. Well, while my team puts that in front of me to look at, gets the Q&A or the YouTube chat up on screen, I'll just share some big ideas with you all. And then I'll do your questions at the very end. I think it's time to begin unpacking these broad blanket acronyms, these highly inflated categories of NHI and UAP. What are we talking about? And is it associated to the key observables? So with UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomena, again, that could be anything from, something you can't identify in the sky to, a breakfast cereal that you don't like and don't know where it came from. It could be basically anything. What are we talking about? A better acronym has recently been proposed. I believe this comes from Kevin Knuth, of unidentified aerospace undersea phenomenon. Aerospace involving not just the air, the atmosphere, but the interface between Earth's atmosphere and space, right? And the undersea domain, lake, river, ocean, sea. I think that is a valuable new term to begin putting forward. NHI, non-human intelligence. Well, gosh, some days I love my little boy toddler, but he sounds like an NHI to me as he tells me things I don't understand and screams as he does it. right? So another way to describe NHI is ETI, extraterrestrial intelligence. The speed of these craft, the ability to accelerate to this level, does, in my mind, suggest an interstellar origin to some of the observed craft. Why would you need speeds of that nature, capabilities of that kind, if you are indigenous to the Earth system, if you are cryptoterrestrial, ultra-terrestrial, right? This sounds like an extraterrestrial capability set. Are we dealing with an extraterrestrial intelligence? Is it physical? Is it biological? Does it demonstrate characteristics that would arise under what we understand as evolutionary pressure? Of course, not on our planetary system, but on another, or in an interstellar environment. The entities being described have eyes, ears, digits, mouths, heads, organs, right? So are we dealing with an evolved entity? Is it extraterrestrial? Is it time to be advancing beyond NHI to talk about ETI, right? Because as we talk about NHI and allow that category to expand ever further, we risk it being stuffed full of everyone's occult theory, every phenomenon that we do not understand that might have intelligence, whatever intelligence means. Is it goal-directed behavior? Is it self-reflection, right? Is it what we commonly know as sentience? Okay. Next, and I shared this earlier, but in my mind, non-human means more than intelligence. It's a non-human reality. We need to begin thinking about our interface with that reality. Is there an exosystemic dynamic at play? Is there an economic interest in us or the Earth? Is there an interactive, collaborative intent? Are we being brought into a regime of some kind, an interstellar, multi-species regime? Some of the entities reported are seen in the same place, same time as other entities of totally different morphologies, right? It appears to be, in that case, a multi-species organization. We also think of this in terms of we're being engaged by an entity from another star system, another planet. It has to have a planetary origin. Why? Why a planetary origin? Maybe entities have found ways to escape their planet of origin and have been living in space surrounding many orbitable bodies for a long time. Maybe they have found ways to converge their interests and form collaborative organizations, right? Are we dealing with something more like a corporation than a single interstellar planetary civilization? This is the exosystemic frame that I think is very intelligent and very important. And last, just drop this one. We have got to be rising out of these zones of exclusive interest in studying this phenomenon. Whether you care about your career, your university's credibility, your nation's security, those are all valid, but there has to be a whole human framing of the interest that we take in response to the non-human interest, which probably has a whole species, whole planet level of intention. So we think it's engaging us. We think we're special. We think it cares so deeply because my name is Reed, or I'm an American, or I'm young, or I'm of a certain ethnicity. It has to be me, right? Maybe. Or maybe you're just one of the cows in the field, right? And it cares about the cattle, not the cow. That's a dark kind of framing to it. I've heard people frame it that way. I've heard them frame it even darker, that they consider us to be nothing more than just ants. And I think there are reasons why people say that. But I think we need to take a whole species, interspecies engagement framing of this issue and begin to work on getting our human act together internationally, intergovernmentally. And believe it or not, that project is already underway and is available to be for you to collaborate with. So stay tuned. So it's not pie in the sky. It's now. It's imminent. Okay, I'm going to turn to your questions now, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, we've got 2 questions in Slido, and I can't seem to find the live stream. So let's see. There we are. Now I found it. Okay, I've got the chat. See, I can do this, team. Okay. I'm going to start in the Slido and then head over to the chat. If you'd like to add to Slido, please do. Okay. Any comments about 3i Atlas? Seems to be getting a decent amount of press coverage. I have so many more questions, but thought I'd throw this out there. You know, I'm undecided. I'm on the fence. I've watched the videos. I've looked at the assertions. It seems anomalous, granted, and I think we are vulnerable to at any moment some inbound object could turn out to be a craft headed our way, with X amount of time to figure out what to do about it. I think we are highly vulnerable to that scenario. That's an NHI engagement strategy. Thank you. That we have to be mindful of. Imagine such a craft was detected at the same time as a communication was received. And that communication said, insert your best Hollywood script. Okay. We would be extremely vulnerable to believing that script. A vast proportion of humanity would automatically, and they would doubt human authorities in their doubting of that script. We are ripe for disinformation or misinformation, which are different, right? We can be misinformed, told non-intentionally the wrong information, or we can be disinformed, intentionally misled. So I think we are vulnerable to that. But, you know, here we are, intelligent creatures trapped on the surface of our planet, exposed fully to the interstellar environment. At any time, any object or craft could be sent inbound and done so in a way that shapes our human understanding of what they are, what we are, our origins, our scriptures, anything. If you haven't watched The Three Body Problem, do, because that's a scenario that needs to be considered, the dark forest theory. And from what I've heard, that narrative, the book behind that series is required reading in the defense community. I wonder why. All right, next question. When will the second part of the course be starting on Forerunner? I hope soon to keep the learning and collaboration momentum going. Great question. I was thinking about it yesterday. And I hope soon. Probably not quite by the end of the year, in all honesty. I have so many other initiatives and projects that have kicked into high gear recently, and they'll be, you know, you'll be invited to those, of course. I welcome you to participate. That the course is going to have to take second fiddle, but it's super important that we use our human cognition to assess the phenomenon based on existing data. It's right there to be had. That is within our reach. We don't need more whistleblowers to make a starting assessment of the phenomenon based on the 100 years of evidence we already have. And if we can't assess with that evidence, what are we going to do with the next data set to dump our way, right? So equipping ourselves as citizens and then getting out onto the street as citizen educators to help other citizens assess the phenomenon with these base 8 human capabilities of observation, logic, caution, responsibility, instinct, evidence collection, so important. So stay tuned. It's going to happen. Why is it that there seems to have very clear, credible photos of the alien beings while there are so many? Why is it that there seems to not maybe be so many credible photos of the alien beings while there are so many encounter stories? Well, let's think through that for a second. I hope I'm getting your question right. So why so few photos? Why so little evidence? Well, there's not no evidence, right? There actually is highly impactful and very credible evidence available to us if we can separate wheat from chaff. That is one of the prime goals of UFOevidence.com, the platform that I have been working on creating. So stay tuned. Very important new set of tools to begin to score evidence at a granular level, at the level of the phenomenon's effect on human and technological observations. Okay, so, but why so few photos? Well, so many reasons why, right? Is the phenomenon able of taking control of the observer, the experiencer, neurologically to prevent them from reaching for the phone? Is it emitting some kind of electromagnetic disturbance that prevents the phone from even working? Well, if you pay attention to the recent reports from organizations like Skywatcher, they have encountered extensive electromagnetic interference at the exact moment of calibrating their equipment and their observation tools, like literally their binoculars, to look at the craft. There's almost a form of psychological surveilling that seems to be at play, where the moment that a human being attempts to take the photo, to look through the glass, to turn on the equipment fails, or the individual has some sort of biological, neurological effect. Even paralysis has been reported, right? So obviously the phenomenon can perceive our cognitive emissions, right? Many who are experiencers of the phenomenon seem to feel like there is an individual interest at play, like it manifests for them. The craft approaches them specifically. Even in Dylan Borland's testimony, this craft rose out of the environment around a NASA hangar on a military base, zoomed right towards him, appeared to stop, and then took off at phenomenal speed, right? Went to commercial airline height, and I think he estimated 3 seconds. So, and he wondered, is there some form of individual identification at play? They know who you are. They're interested in you. Now, I know I'm kind of conflicting what I said about, they're interested in maybe the cattle, not the cow. But if you're interested in the cattle, well, and you want to shape the cattle, you got to know who the alpha male is, or who the male and the female is, right? You have to understand the composition of the herd. And we as individuals offer vastly different capabilities and qualities that could be chosen or selected for. I even at times wonder about basic use of selection or intentional selection of traits in the shaping of the evolutionary lineage of a species, like we do with animals. We pick, the chicken with the most meat on it. We select the corn that grows the tallest, that has the sweetest fruit. And so would a non-human select us based on certain traits? Again, out of some intent to shape the human outcome, for good or for ill. So that might be at play. But I'm actually not surprised that there's so few photos. If I were an NHI wanting to directly physically engage an individual, perform medical experiments, a potential set of genetic interventions, reproductive interventions, I should say, gosh, I'm not going to let them take a photo home, like a Polaroid as a little consolation prize for the experience. No, you're going to cover your tracks in order for whatever that program is to be successful over time. Long answer. Do you think it's possible or likely that the loyalties of parts of the military has been captured by ETI influence, specifically because of how important that organization is for our ability to gather intelligence and for their ability to deceive us? Fascinating question. In the last set of hearings in Congress, I took due note of how one individual coming from the Air Force was heavily intimidated, heavy reprisals against them, whereas another individual coming from the Navy experienced almost none of that. I don't know if they experienced encouragement, but definitely not retaliation. And so there seems to be a very distinct response by different military organizations to this phenomenon. Now, they are operating in different domains, air, sea, and those domains offer a different detectable set of signatures, which means a different data set on the phenomenon, a different engagement pattern, and a different set of threat propositions, right? What could a UAP do to an airborne $22 million aircraft with a pilot in it relative to another type of craft? So is there a difference in how the phenomenon has engaged different craft in different domains? Possibly. I think it's a great question to ask about our ability to gather intelligence on them. So where are they most vulnerable? Think like them, not at the level of consciousness, right? At the level of programmatic engagement. We can't think like them. We don't know what their consciousness is. But again, they are operating a program in human space for potential human outcomes, which means they will use human strategies They will learn from us to see what works, right? They might have scooped up our data set and engaged in a long period of observation prior to engagement, simply to understand what works in human space. That's what I would do if I was an intelligent actor with a program of engagement. And so they would understand that the Air Force can do different things than the Navy, that the Soviets can do different things than the Americans. Absolutely. They would probably pick their partners as well, at a basic cultural level. What human culture best fits the cultural model that they operate within, that they could couple with? What cultural model threatens their cultural model and its perpetuation or its functionality in our space? There definitely does seem to be a distribution of differences in how different countries, organizations, and even different communities, cultural, ethnic, etc., seem to experience this phenomenon. And how fascinating would that be? A cross-cultural, cross-national, cross-domain analysis of human responses, let alone NHI activity. Good question. I'm going to put these two other questions through the queue, and then we'll close up there. What would you say are the 3 best things we can individually do to tangibly advance this topic forward? Ooh, great question. Sip of tea for that one. Well, there's what I should say, and then there's what I want to say. What I need to say or should say is become as strong a life form as you can, because you are part of the human engagement with another form of life, right? So that means your stability, your mental health, your physical health, even your personal affairs. Turn away from the UFO topic and become stronger, because you will have more mental force at your disposal to contribute to this field. Become a stronger form of life, my first one. Second, use all your capabilities and think logically and instinctually. Logic and instinct are getting thrown out like the bathwater on this topic. And whimsical thinking, wishful expectation, dangerous assumptions are in vogue heavily, right? They're on the catwalk of the UFO community. I would reject those. I would embrace logic, responsibility, caution, instinct. Absolutely. And become a student of the phenomenon. Be an observer. You are a sensor yourself, a human sensor. Help build humanity's evidential record, because it is from that we will conduct our own intelligence efforts upon the phenomenon. But without data, without information, and without the tools to gather more of it, we are crippled, right? And thus we speculate. So those would be the 3 things I should say to you. The 3 things I want to say to you are: secure your psychic space, learn to shield your mind, because the engagement is happening there, if not mostly there. Second, I would really consider your skill set and your disposition, personally, professionally, and how this phenomenon and this event, I should say, not the phenomenon, the event is speaking to you. Is there a calling to get involved? How would you get involved? No one can answer that but you. I think the ways to get involved are going to manifest in the next several years. In part, that's the power of disclosure. All it takes is one whistleblower to say biologics were recovered with some, biologics were discovered with some of those recoveries. Powerful statement, right? Non-human was the assessment of those working still on the program. Powerful statement, right? What that does is it allows the public to respond to a signal, really from life itself, from the event of this engagement. So feel out the calling for yourself, and begin to think about the real implications of a long-range interspecies interaction that does not necessarily have our best intentions at heart, right? What would you do? How would you respond to that scenario? Because I think that's a scenario at play. So thanks for the question. Okay, and here's one. This is a good one. This is a heartwarmer to end on. We'll put this one up on screen here. Back to Slido if we may. Okay. Um, oh, wow. I'm seeing different questions than those ones. Well, anyhow, it's this. What do you imagine is the best outcome from interacting with non-human intelligence? I think there's a phenomenal outcome possible through this interaction, almost regardless of the phenomenon and its intent. If we can get our human act together and realize our fundamental commonalities, our profound shared and collective nature as human beings, that we live on this beautiful planet, our sovereign domain, and we are engaging with a system of life that needs to negotiate its intent with ours, right? And a lot of that rests on us. If we don't express an intent, anything could run roughshod right over us. It could even think it's doing us a favor, right? It could be comporting us over to its cultural model, its technological regime, right? So that we are so fractured and divided and diffracted is the problem. And there's so much good work to be done there. There's so much this phenomenon, the waking up to it, can do for that. All of these grievances, which we nurture, that fester even today, that we use as political platform, right? I think could be healed to a tremendous degree by an exigency, an external forcing, not a personal political platform or philosophy or a nice way of thinking, but life itself, nature, the demand of life itself, right? What that could do to heal these grievances is tremendous. The technology we've gained from NHI, can that be put to good use? I certainly hope so, but we had better get our act together in controlling its development and deployment in society. Otherwise, we're going to wake up a different human in 50 or 100 years. We'd better figure out what the phenomenon is doing with individuals or the same outcome. But even in that potential risk, we see, I personally, like, do I look afraid to you? Do I look cowed by any threat? No. What this phenomenon has shown me is the phenomenal potential and gift and assets of the human species, culturally, historically, religiously. I don't throw those out. I don't allow myself to denigrate those in the presence of a higher sentience. Hell no. So be a believer in what humanity is, has done, has been through. We have sweated it out on earth. We have shed blood and tears to get to where we are through so many eras of primitive, hunter-gatherer societies, primitive empires, nascent countries or nation states, to be a global community, to be able to even say you are a member of the human family. We have been through that trial by fire. Don't forget that, and don't forget the human cause, because no one will champion it but us. And I think that is well within hand. And there's a crowd at the bottom, and it's empty at the top. And no one is preventing you from taking your place there. The government isn't, the military isn't, the phenomenon isn't. Nobody can take away your spirit, like what you seek to do in your life and to express through your life. That is within your grasp. And so I think that is the best outcome from engaging or interacting with non-human intelligence immediately. Long range, could we get to a place where we are stable on Earth environmentally, socially, economically? We are self-sufficient in our planetary domain. We have expressed our position, our intent in the universe. We're able to diplomatically engage, to communicate. Wow, what a phenomenal future that could be, right? To contribute in a larger community of life beyond our world, a greater community. Wow, what a future that could be. But, to get out there onto those bigger seas where there are bigger waves, we've got to get off the shore, over the first hurdles, and really strengthen ourselves as a form of life. Otherwise, through base evolutionary pressure and ecological competition, any other form of life could simply outcompete us, right? We could, 500 years from now, this planet could be home to someone else. And whatever humanity was, it won't be remembered. It'll be gone. And, that's not evil. That's not malevolent. That's not bad. That's nature, right? So don't be afraid of nature. I would say own up. Man up, woman up, be an actor on the stage of this unfolding story of our human emergence into this larger framework of life that exists beyond us. That is within your grasp. The people I work with, they hold that as what they're doing. That's their commitment. It's not, it's bigger than career, than personal credibility or reputation or profile, money, right? Or other smaller domains of concern and interest. It's bigger than that. And so, acting in the human interest, designing solutions in the human interest, responding for the highest good, which in my mind, yes, there are higher goods than humanity. You could take a divine angle about that, an angelic angle, whatever your faith or religion. I think the most commonly available to all, the basis for a unified human response is humanity itself. To me, that's the highest good that we need to act within in response to engaging non-human intelligence. So thank you everyone for being here. Pleasure to gather up the audience of Emergent, those on Forerunner, those taking my course, those out there in the Twitter, the X space, the Reddit river, wherever you are. Thanks for being here. Thanks for engaging seriously and soberly with these important considerations. Keep fighting, keep endeavoring, stay out there on the front lines, because that is where humanity needs you. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you soon.